Step away from the vehicle. Now,
Is there a problem, officer?
where'd you get that uniform?
I'm a Navy SEAL. I just came from a ceremony.
You got ID?
Yes. But what am I being detained for?
Hands on the car. Don't argue.
Deputy Sheriff Travis Holbrook had been with the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department for 9 years when he responded to a call that would destroy his life and send him to federal prison for 58 years. He was 34 years old, experienced enough to know better, confident enough to believe his judgment was infallible. One Friday night at a gas station on Highland Avenue, he saw a black man in a Navy uniform and decided it had to be fake. The man was Lieutenant Commander Darius Mitchell, a decorated Navy SEAL with 16 years of service, multiple combat deployments, and medals for extraordinary heroism. What Holbrook did next, ignoring Mitchell's credentials, dismissing his military ID, and arresting a war hero in full-dress uniform, would trigger a Pentagon investigation, federal charges, and a trial that exposed 9 years of documented racial profiling. Holbrook's record told a story San Bernardino County had ignored for nearly a decade. 14 complaints over 9 years. 14. Every single one involved people of color. Every single one followed the same pattern. A black family barbecuing in Glen Helen Regional Park, Holbrook demanded permits, threatened citations when they questioned his authority. A Hispanic teenager skateboarding near Victoria Gardens Mall, detained for 40 minutes, backpacks searched without consent. An Asian businessman photographing architecture downtown, questioned about terrorism surveillance. A black college student driving through Rancho Cucamonga, pulled over for driving suspiciously. Car searched, no contraband found. The complaints were documented. The pattern was obvious. But San Bernardino County treated each incident in isolation, never connecting them into what they clearly formed. A deputy who saw people of color in spaces where his biased mind said they didn't belong. Supervisors noted in his evaluations that Holbrook was results-oriented, but sometimes overzealous in community interactions, that he could benefit from additional de-escalation, training, that he should work on cultural sensitivity. But those notes never became consequences. 3 complaints resulted in written reprimands filed away and forgotten. 4 triggered mandatory retraining sessions Holbrook attended but never internalized. 7 were closed with insufficient evidence, despite witness statements. 0 resulted in suspension, demotion, or termination. So Holbrook kept patrolling, kept stopping, kept assuming, and San Bernardino County kept ignoring the pattern until the night Holbrook targeted someone who couldn't be dismissed, someone whose credentials came with Pentagon backing, someone whose arrest would finally force accountability. Lieutenant Commander Darius Mitchell was 38 years old when Deputy Holbrook decided his Navy uniform must be fake. Mitchell had been a Navy SEAL for 16 years. 16 years of service most people can't comprehend. He joined the Navy at 22, desperate to escape San Bernardino's cycle of poverty and violence that had claimed 3 of his high school friends. Basic training at Great Lakes, then BUD, S, Basic Underwater Demolition, SEAL training, where 80% of candidates quit. Mitchell didn't quit. 6 months of hell, cold water immersions, endless physical torture, sleep deprivation designed to break you. He graduated, earned his trident, the gold pin SEALs wear with pride. Then the real work began. First deployment to Iraq in 2009, Ramadi, clearing buildings, hunting high-value targets, watching teammates take fire. Second deployment to Afghanistan, Helmand Province, 8 months in the mountains, ambushes, IEDs, missions classified even now. Third, deployment back to Iraq, Mosul, the fight against ISIS, operations so intense Mitchell still had nightmares. Syria, Yemen, Somalia, places the American public never heard about, missions that never made the news. In 2016, during an operation in northern Iraq, Mitchell's team was ambushed. 8 SEALs pinned down by heavy machine gun fire, RPGs exploding, teammates wounded. Mitchell, already hit by shrapnel, his leg bleeding, ran into the kill zone 3 times, dragging wounded operators to safety. He held a position alone for 12 minutes while the team evacuated, taking fire from 3 directions, returning fire until his ammunition ran out. All 8 teammates survived. Mitchell earned the Navy Cross, the second highest military decoration for valor, just below the Medal of Honor. The citation described extraordinary heroism under fire and complete disregard for personal safety. He also earned the Purple Heart for his wounds and the Bronze Star with V device for valor in a separate operation. His chest held ribbons most civilians wouldn't recognize, but every service member respected. Combat Action Ribbon, Iraq Campaign Medal with 4 stars, Afghanistan Campaign Medal, NATO Medal, ribbons representing years of sacrifice. That Friday night in October, Mitchell was driving through San Bernardino in his Navy service dress blue uniform, the formal military attire worn for ceremonies and official functions. He'd just come from Naval Base San Diego, a memorial service for a fallen teammate, a brother killed in a training accident. The service had been emotional, exhausting, a reminder of how many friends Mitchell had buried. He was driving to his mother's house to surprise her, hadn't seen her in 8 months, couldn't tell her where he'd been. Classified deployment, dangerous work. He just wanted to hug her, sleep in his childhood bed, pretend for a weekend that the world wasn't burning. At 10:47 p.m., his fuel light came on. He pulled into the Chevron station on Highland Avenue. The Chevron station on Highland Avenue sits at the intersection where San Bernardino's working-class neighborhoods meet the slightly more affluent areas to the north. It's the kind of 24-hour station that serves late-night shift workers, long-haul truckers, and people just passing through. Bright fluorescent lights, 8 pumps, small convenience store with bulletproof glass at the counter. On a Friday night in October, the station was quiet. Just a few cars, people minding their own business, getting gas, and leaving. At 10:47 p.m., Lieutenant Commander Darius Mitchell pulled his silver Honda Accord into pump number 5. He stepped out, still in his Navy service dress blue uniform. The uniform is unmistakable: dark navy blue jacket with gold buttons, white shirt underneath, black tie, and matching navy trousers. On his left chest, rows of ribbons in precise military alignment, the Navy Cross at the top, its blue and white stripes immediately recognizable to anyone with military knowledge, Purple Heart below that, Bronze Star with the small bronze V device for valor, campaign medals, service ribbons, each one telling a story of deployment, sacrifice, combat. On his right chest, his gold seal trident, the eagle clutching an anchor, trident, and pistol, the pin every SEAL earns after years of training. His shoulder board showed 2.5 gold stripes, the rank insignia of a lieutenant commander, 04, equivalent to an Army major. His military bearing was obvious: the way he stood, shoulders back, head up, the posture drilled into service members through years of training. His shoes were polished. His uniform was immaculate despite the long day. He looked exactly like what he was, a decorated Navy officer in formal military attire. Mitchell swiped his credit card at the pump, selected regular unleaded, and began filling his tank. He was exhausted, emotionally drained from the memorial service, from saying goodbye to another teammate who'd survived combat only to die in a training accident. He was thinking about his mother, about how surprised she'd be to see him, about whether she'd made her famous peach cobbler recently. He wasn't thinking about the person watching him from across the parking lot. Someone who saw his uniform, saw his skin, and decided something must be wrong. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light. The call came into San Bernardino County Sheriff's Dispatch at 10:51 p.m. Anonymous caller, refusing to provide a name, calling from a cell phone that would later be traced to an apartment complex 3 blocks from the Chevron station. "Hi, I'm calling about a suspicious person at the gas station on Highland Avenue. There's a black guy wearing what looks like a military costume, and he's been standing there for a while. He looks threatening. I think he might be impersonating a service member or something. Can you send someone to check it out?" The dispatcher asked standard questions. "Is the person doing anything threatening? Has he approached anyone? Is he carrying weapons?" "No, but he just looks suspicious. The uniform looks fake. I don't think he's really military. He doesn't look like he should be wearing that. The dispatcher logged the call, suspicious person, possible stolen valor, and sent it out. The call was assigned to Deputy Travis Holbrook, who was patrolling 2 miles away. Holbrook responded immediately. This was exactly the kind of call that activated every bias in his pattern. A black man in a space where Holbrook's assumptions said black men didn't belong, wearing something that seemed too legitimate, too accomplished, too authoritative for Holbrook to accept as real. In Holbrook's mind, the narrative was already written before he arrived. Black guy in military uniform at a gas station late at night, probably homeless, probably mentally ill, probably bought the uniform at a thrift store or online. Stolen valor, impersonating a service member, that's a federal crime. He's going to investigate, probably make an arrest. Another case closed. Holbrook didn't consider that the uniform might be real. He didn't think about calling the base to verify. He didn't wonder why someone impersonating military would wear such an elaborate, expensive, perfectly fitted dress uniform with specific medals and ribbons. He just saw a black man in a military uniform and decided it had to be fake. His bias was so complete, so ingrained after 9 years of targeting people of color without consequences, that evidence didn't matter. His assumptions overrode reality. He pulled into the Chevron station at 10:54 p.m., lights flashing, already approaching this as a criminal matter rather than a welfare check. Mitchell was finishing pumping gas, replacing the nozzle, closing his fuel door, when he saw the patrol car pull in fast, lights swirling red and blue across the concrete. Deputy Holbrook stepped out of his patrol car before it fully stopped, his hand resting on his duty belt near his weapon, his posture aggressive, confrontational. He walked directly toward Mitchell, who was standing next to his Honda, fuel door closed, receipt printing from the pump. Mitchell turned and saw the deputy approaching fast, lights still flashing, and his stomach dropped. He'd been here before, not exactly this situation, but close enough. He knew what was happening. Step away from the vehicle, hands where I can see them. Now. Mitchell raised his hands slowly, palms out, visible, non-threatening. His voice was calm, controlled, the tone of someone trained to de-escalate tense situations. Officer, I'm just getting gas. Is there a problem? Holbrook stopped 3 feet away, his eyes scanning Mitchell up and down, taking in the uniform, the medals, the insignia, and seeing none of it as real. Military costume isn't funny. You need to take it off right now. Mitchell's heart sank. He'd served 16 years, deployed to combat zones most Americans couldn't find on a map, earned medals for valor under fire, and he was being told his uniform was a costume. He recognized the tone, the assumption, the accusation. This wasn't about the uniform. This was about his skin. Officer, this isn't a costume. I'm an active duty Navy SEAL. I just came from a memorial service at Naval Base San Diego. I'm on my way to visit my mother. Holbrook's expression didn't change. Sure you are. Stolen valor is a federal crime. You're impersonating a military officer. Mitchell felt anger rising but kept his voice steady. 16 years of training, of staying calm under pressure, of controlling his reactions when lives depended on it. Sir, I'm not impersonating anyone. This is my uniform. I earned it. I can show you my military ID, my orders, anything you need to verify. I don't need to verify anything. I can see what's happening here. Holbrook stepped closer, his voice harder. You bought that uniform, put on some fake medals, and now you're walking around pretending to be something you're not. It's disrespectful to real service members. Mitchell's jaw tightened. He'd lost friends in Iraq and Afghanistan. He'd held dying teammates. He'd been wounded saving others. And this deputy was telling him he was disrespecting service members. Other customers at the gas station were starting to notice. A man at pump 3 slowed down, watching. A woman inside the convenience store pressed her face against the glass. Should officers verify military credentials before accusing service members? Drop your answer below. Mitchell reached slowly into his jacket pocket, moving deliberately so Holbrook wouldn't misinterpret the action. Officer, I'm reaching for my military ID. It's in my inside pocket. I'm going to show you my credentials. Keep your hands where I can see them." Holbrook's hand moved closer to his weapon. Mitchell froze, then moved even slower, pulling out his military ID card, the common access card that every service member carries. He held it out. "This is my military ID. Lieutenant Commander Darius Mitchell, United States Navy. My DoD ID number is right here. You can call Naval Base San Diego. You can call NCIS. You can verify everything." Holbrook took the card, glanced at it for maybe 3 seconds, and handed it back. "Anyone can print a fake ID. They sell them online for $20. Mitchell stared at him. The ID had holograms, security features, an embedded chip, the Department of Defense seal. It was as official as an ID could be. "This isn't fake. Look at the security features. Look at the hologram. This is a military common access card. It's impossible to fake convincingly. Looks fake to me." Mitchell pointed to his chest, to the rows of ribbons precisely aligned. "These ribbons, these medals, they're in the correct order according to military regulations. The Navy Cross, Purple Heart, Bronze Star with V device. These represent specific awards. You can verify every one of them. Anyone can buy fake medals online. I've seen it before." Holbrook's voice was flat, dismissive. Mitchell's patience was wearing thin, but he kept trying. "Sir, I'm asking you to make one phone call. Call the Naval Special Warfare Command duty officer. Call NCIS. They can confirm my identity in 5 minutes. I'm not asking you to take my word. I'm asking you to verify through official channels. I don't need to call anyone. I can tell what's real and what's fake." This was the moment where bias became impenetrable. Holbrook had decided before he arrived that Mitchell was impersonating a service member. Every piece of evidence after that, the ID, the uniform, the medals, the calm demeanor, was filtered through that initial assumption. He wasn't looking at a Navy SEAL. He was looking at a criminal trying to deceive him. The gas station security cameras were recording everything from 2 angles, one mounted above the pumps, one above the convenience store entrance. The footage would later show Mitchell standing calmly, hands visible, speaking in controlled tones. It would show Holbrook aggressive, dismissive, refusing to examine the evidence. Other customers were pulling out their phones now. A man at Pump 7 had his camera up, recording. The woman in the store was filming through the glass. Everyone could see what was happening. A black man in military uniform being accused of impersonating a service member despite showing credentials. Mitchell tried one more time. "Officer Holbrook, reading the nameplate, I'm Lieutenant Commander Darius Mitchell. I've served 16 years in the Navy, 12 as a SEAL. I have my military ID, my orders in my car, my leave papers. I'm asking you to verify my credentials before this goes any further." Holbrook's voice turned hard, commanding, "Take off that uniform right now. You're not authorized to wear it. Remove it immediately." Mitchell stared at him, processing what was being demanded. Strip out of his dress uniform at a gas station under fluorescent lights with strangers watching? Remove the uniform he'd earned through blood and sacrifice? "I'm not stripping out of my dress uniform at a gas station, sir. This is my uniform. I'm authorized to wear it. I'm an active duty officer. That's a direct order. Remove the uniform or I'll remove it for you." Mitchell's voice remained controlled, but the edge was unmistakable. "Officer, what you're demanding is unreasonable and unlawful. I'm not removing my uniform. I've shown you my credentials. I've asked you to verify my identity. You're refusing to do basic due diligence." Holbrook reached for his radio. "Dispatch, this is 3 Adam 1-2. I need backup at the Chevron station on Highland. Suspect is belligerent, refusing lawful orders, possible stolen valor situation." Mitchell's hands were still raised, visible, non-threatening. His voice carried across the parking lot, clear enough for the recording phones to capture. "I am not belligerent. I am not refusing lawful orders. I am a lieutenant commander in the United States Navy, and I'm being unlawfully detained." Holbrook stepped closer, invading Mitchell's space. "You're impersonating a military officer? That's a federal crime under the Stolen Valor Act. You're under arrest." The irony was staggering. Holbrook was accusing Mitchell of stolen valor while about to commit deprivation of rights under color of law, false imprisonment, assault on a military service member, multiple federal felonies that would send Holbrook to prison for decades. But Holbrook couldn't see it. His bias was complete. Mitchell took a slow breath, the kind he'd learned in combat when staying calm meant survival. "Sir, I've served this country for 16 years. I've deployed to Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria. I've been wounded in combat. I've saved lives. I've earned every ribbon on this uniform. I'm not a criminal. I'm asking you one more time to verify my credentials before you make a mistake that destroys your career. Your career is over, buddy. You're going to jail." 2 more patrol cars pulled into the station, lights flashing, sirens winding down. Deputy Maria Santos and Deputy Jeff Coleman stepped out, assessing the situation. A black man in military uniform, hands raised, calm demeanor. Their colleague aggressive, confrontational. Santos exchanged a glance with Coleman. This didn't look right. Santos approached first. "Holbrook, what's the situation? Stolen valor. Subject is impersonating a naval officer, refuses to remove the fake uniform, refuses lawful orders." Santos looked at Mitchell, at the uniform, at the rows of medals that looked expensive, official, precisely arranged. "Sir, can you identify yourself?" Mitchell's voice was steady, professional. "I'm Lieutenant Commander Darius Mitchell, United States Navy SEALs. I showed Deputy Holbrook my military ID. I've asked him repeatedly to verify my credentials through Naval Base San Diego, or NCIS. He's refused. This is an unlawful detention." Coleman stepped closer, examining the uniform more carefully. The ribbons were in correct precedence order, Navy Cross at the top, something you couldn't fake without detailed military knowledge. The trident looked authentic, the weight and quality of real gold. The shoulder boards showed proper rank insignia. "Holbrook, did you verify his ID?" "It's fake. Anyone can see that." Santos pulled out her phone. "What base are you assigned to, sir?" "Naval Amphibious Base Coronado, SEAL Team 3. My commanding officer is Captain Raymond Torres. The duty officer tonight should be Lieutenant Hayes. You can call the quarterdeck. They'll confirm my identity in 2 minutes." Santos started to dial. Holbrook grabbed her arm. "We don't need to call. I'm telling you it's fake." Santos pulled her arm away, her expression hardening. "Holbrook, if there's any chance he's legitimate, we verify. That's basic procedure. He's not legitimate. He's black. Look at him. You really think he's a Navy SEAL?" The words hung in the air, captured by multiple phones, recorded by gas station cameras. The implicit bias made explicit. Santos and Coleman both recoiled. Mitchell closed his eyes briefly. There it was. The truth Holbrook had been dancing around, finally said out loud. Coleman's voice dropped low. "Holbrook, what did you just say?" But Holbrook was committed now, too deep to back out. "I'm arresting him. Subject, turn around, hands behind your back." Mitchell made a decision. He could resist, argue, make this physical, or he could comply, document everything, and let the system that Holbrook represented deal with what came next. He turned around, placing his hands behind his back. "I'm complying under protest. I am Lieutenant Commander Darius Mitchell, active duty United States Navy SEAL. This arrest is unlawful. I've committed no crime. I've shown proper identification. I've requested verification through official channels. This is being recorded by multiple witnesses and security cameras." Holbrook pulled out his handcuffs and snapped them on Mitchell's wrists, deliberately tight, the metal cutting into skin. Mitchell winced but said nothing. The handcuffs crushed against his uniform jacket, wrinkling the fabric, pressing the metals into his chest. Santos stood frozen, her phone still in her hand, watching something that felt catastrophically wrong. Coleman's face showed pure horror at what his colleague was doing. Holbrook walked Mitchell toward his patrol car, one hand gripping Mitchell's arm, the other on his duty belt. Mitchell's dress shoes scraped across the concrete. His uniform, immaculate 10 minutes ago, was now wrinkled, disheveled. The ribbons sat askew. His tie was pulled to one side. A decorated war hero, A man who'd earned the Navy Cross for extraordinary heroism, being perp-walked across a gas station parking lot like a common criminal. The customers at the gas station erupted. "He's really in the military. We saw his ID. Check his credentials. Call the base. This is wrong. He didn't do anything. Officer, you're making a mistake. He showed you his ID." Holbrook ignored them all. Several onlookers had called 911, but the dispatcher said deputies were already on scene. Others felt powerless to intervene with an armed officer. Santos and Coleman stood by their cars, uncertain, conflicted, watching their colleague commit a federal crime. Why do some officers see black men in uniform and assume it's fake? Comment your thoughts. The drive to the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Station took 11 minutes. Mitchell sat in the back of Holbrook's patrol car, hands cuffed behind him, the metal digging into his wrists. The partition separated him from Holbrook, who drove in silence, probably already writing his arrest report in his head, convinced he'd done good police work. Mitchell stared out the window at the streets he'd grown up on, the neighborhoods he'd escaped through military service, now being driven through them in handcuffs. They arrived at the station at 11:19 p.m. Holbrook pulled into the Sallyport, the secure garage where prisoners are brought in, away from public view. He opened the back door and pulled Mitchell out, walking him through the metal door into the booking area. The booking sergeant on duty was Luis Moreno, a 19-year veteran who'd seen everything, or thought he had. He looked up from his computer as Holbrook walked Mitchell in and froze. A man in Navy service dress blues, full uniform, rows of ribbons on his chest, the Navy Cross visible at the top, gold trident on his lapel, hands cuffed behind his back. Moreno stood up slowly. "Holbrook, what the hell did you arrest?" "Stolen valor. Subject was at a gas station impersonating a naval officer, wearing a fake uniform, fake medals. Refused to remove the uniform when ordered. Refused lawful commands. I'm booking him for impersonating a military officer under federal statute." Moreno walked around his desk, approaching Mitchell, examining the uniform more closely. The ribbons were in perfect order, arranged according to military precedence regulations. The Navy Cross, Navy and Marine Corps Medal, Purple Heart, Bronze Star with the small V device, Defense Meritorious Service Medal, Joint Service Commendation Medal, campaign ribbons from Iraq and Afghanistan. The uniform fit perfectly, tailored, expensive. The shoes were polished to a mirror shine. The trident looked like real gold, not costume jewelry. "Sir, what's your name?" "Lieutenant Commander Darius Mitchell, United States Navy, serial number N4378921. I showed Deputy Holbrook my military ID. I asked him to verify my credentials. He refused." Mitchell's voice was calm but carried the exhaustion of someone who'd been fighting an absurd battle for the past 30 minutes. Moreno held out his hand. "Can I see your ID?" Mitchell nodded toward his jacket pocket. "Inside left pocket." Moreno carefully reached into Mitchell's pocket and pulled out the common access card. He examined it under the bright booking area lights. Hologram intact, embedded security chip visible, Department of Defense seal embossed. Photo matched the man standing in front of him. The ID showed rank, Lieutenant Commander 04, Branch of Service, United States Navy, expiration date 18 months from now. Moreno turned to Holbrook. "This looks real. It's fake. Anyone can print those." Moreno had seen fake military IDs before. They were usually obviously counterfeit, printed on regular cardstock, no security features, wrong fonts. This wasn't that. This had weight, texture, multiple security layers. "Holbrook, this has an RFID chip. You can't fake that." He walked back to his desk and picked up his phone. "What base are you assigned to, Commander?" "Naval Amphibious Base Coronado, SEAL Team 3. Moreno dialed the number for NAB Coronado Quarterdeck, the 24-hour duty station. It rang twice. "Quarterdeck, Petty Officer Hayes speaking. This is a non-secure line. This is Sergeant Moreno, San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. I need to verify the identity of someone claiming to be one of your personnel. Lieutenant Commander Darius Mitchell says he's assigned to SEAL Team 3. There was a pause, the sound of typing. "Stand by, Sergeant." The wait felt like forever, but lasted maybe 90 seconds. Hayes came back on the line, his voice more formal. "Sergeant, I can confirm Lieutenant Commander Darius Mitchell is an active duty officer assigned to Naval Special Warfare Group 1, SEAL Team 3. What's the nature of your inquiry?" Moreno's face went white. "He's been arrested." "Arrested? For what?" "Hold on." Moreno looked at Holbrook, then at Mitchell, then back at Holbrook. "He's real. He's an active duty SEAL Team 3 officer. You arrested a Navy SEAL." Within 6 minutes of that phone call, the situation escalated beyond anything San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department had ever handled. Petty Officer Hayes immediately notified his officer of the deck. The OOD notified the command duty officer. The CDO notified the SEAL Team 3 commanding officer, Captain Raymond Torres, at his home. Torres, knowing Mitchell had been at a memorial service that evening and was heading to visit family, immediately understood something had gone catastrophically wrong. At 11:31 p.m., Torres called the Naval Criminal Investigative Service duty officer in San Diego. "This is Captain Torres, SEAL Team 3. One of my officers, Lieutenant Commander Darius Mitchell, has been arrested by San Bernardino County Sheriff. I need NCIS involved immediately." The NCIS agent, Special Agent Kellerman, pulled up Mitchell's service record on his computer as Torres spoke. "Combat deployments, Navy Cross, Purple Heart, active security clearance, 0 disciplinary issues. Captain, what are the charges?" "Unknown, but he was in dress blues heading to visit his mother. Whatever happened, this needs federal attention. NCIS notified Naval Special Warfare Command Headquarters. NSW Command has a direct line to the Pentagon for situations involving special operations personnel." By 11:47 p.m., the duty officer at the Pentagon's Naval Operations Center was briefed. A Navy SEAL, decorated combat veteran, arrested in California under unclear circumstances. This wasn't a local matter anymore. At 12:03 a.m., Navy JAG, Judge Advocate General's Corps, attorneys at Naval Base San Diego were activated. 2 senior military lawyers began preparing to drive to San Bernardino. Pentagon public affairs officers were notified, preparing for what could become a national story. At 12:15 a.m., Captain Torres personally called Sheriff Robert Decker at home. Decker, roused from sleep, listened as Torres explained, with barely controlled anger, that one of his officers, a decorated SEAL with 16 years of exemplary service, had been arrested at a gas station for wearing his uniform. "Sheriff, Lieutenant Commander Mitchell holds a top-secret, sensitive compartmented information clearance. He's been on classified deployments. He's earned the Navy Cross for extraordinary heroism, and one of your deputies arrested him for stolen valor. I have Navy JAG en route. I have NCIS involved. And I'm about to notify the Secretary of the Navy that one of my SEALs was arrested for being black in uniform." Decker's blood went cold. He immediately called the station, demanded the watch commander brief him. The watch commander pulled the booking information, saw Mitchell's name, saw the charges, saw that Sergeant Moreno had already verified Mitchell's military status. Decker arrived at the station by 12:40 a.m., still in civilian clothes, his face showing the horror of someone who just realized his department had committed an unthinkable error. He walked into the booking area where Mitchell still stood, hands now uncuffed, uniform wrinkled, but dignity intact. "Commander Mitchell, I'm Sheriff Decker. I cannot adequately apologize for what's happened. You're being released immediately. All charges are dropped." Mitchell's voice was quiet, controlled. "Sheriff, your deputy arrested a decorated military officer at a gas station for wearing his uniform. He refused to verify my credentials. He demanded I strip out of my dress blues in public. He handcuffed me in front of witnesses. This isn't something an apology fixes." Decker nodded, his face pale. "I understand, sir. We'll conduct a full investigation." "The Pentagon is already conducting their investigation, Sheriff. This is out of your hands now." While Mitchell stood in the booking area waiting for the sheriff to process his release, His complete service record was being pulled up on computer screens from San Diego to Washington, D.C. Every deployment, every mission, every award, every evaluation was being reviewed by Navy leadership, NCIS investigators, Pentagon officials, and within hours, the U.S. Attorney's Office. The record painted a picture that made Holbrook's arrest not just wrong but obscene. Darius Mitchell had enlisted in the Navy at 22 years old, scored high enough on the ASVAB to qualify for any rating, chose to attempt BUD-S training. He'd survived Hell Week, the infamous 5.5 days of continuous training with maximum 4 hours of sleep total. He'd survived the pool competency tests where instructors tried to drown you to test your calm under pressure. He'd survived the cold, the pain, the instructors designed to break you. 78% of his class quit. Mitchell graduated, earned his trident, became a Navy SEAL. First deployment came in 2009, Iraq, Ramadi, and Fallujah. Clearing buildings, hunting high-value targets, combat operations that lasted months. Second deployment, Afghanistan, Helmand Province, 2011, hunting Taliban commanders in the mountains, 8 months of firefights and IED threats. Third deployment, back to Iraq in 2014, Mosul, fighting ISIS, operations so intense the casualty rate for his platoon was 40%. Fourth deployment, Syria, 2016, classified operations against ISIS leadership. Fifth deployment, Yemen, 2018, counter-terrorism missions the American public never heard about. Sixth deployment, back to Afghanistan, 2019, training Afghan special forces while conducting direct action missions. 6 combat deployments over 12 years as a SEAL. Most Americans serve 1 deployment their entire career. Mitchell had 6. In 2016, during an operation outside Mosul, Mitchell's 8-man SEAL team was ambushed while securing a compound. Heavy machine gun fire from 3 directions, RPGs exploding, walls collapsing. 2 teammates were hit immediately, wounded, unable to move. Mitchell, already hit by shrapnel in his left leg, bleeding, his uniform soaked with blood, ran into the kill zone. He dragged the first wounded SEAL to cover, 40 yards under continuous fire. Ran back into the kill zone for the second. Then a third teammate was hit. Mitchell went back again. He held a defensive position alone for 12 minutes while the team called for air support and evacuated the wounded. He fired his M4 until the mag...
Sir, I need to see your identification and proof of citizenship.
Can you tell me your probable cause for that request?
We received a tip about suspicious activity. Now show me your papers.
My police credentials are in my vehicle. I am a U.S.
I don't want
citizen.
police credentials. I want proof of immigration.
ICE agent Derek Holt thought he was conducting routine immigration enforcement. Anonymous tip. Suspicious individual at a suburban gas station. Possible undocumented worker. In his mind, demanding papers was standard procedure. He had done it dozens of times before, approaching people who didn't look like they belonged, relying on instincts that had never been seriously challenged. But when he walked up to the black man filling his truck at Pump 7 and demanded proof of citizenship, he made a catastrophic miscalculation. The man he approached was Sergeant First Class Marcus Webb, a decorated Navy SEAL with 12 years of service, 3 combat deployments, a Bronze Star, and a Purple Heart. Webb was also an off-duty police detective with the Metro Police Department, a man who had spent his entire adult life defending the Constitution that Holt was about to violate. And when Webb calmly refused the unlawful demand, citing his Fourth Amendment rights and asking for probable cause, Holt made a series of decisions that would cost the federal government $14.9 million. What Holt didn't realize, what he completely failed to consider in his rush to enforce his assumptions, was that 3 separate recording systems were capturing every moment. The gas station's CCTV system with 8 cameras covering every angle, Holt's own body camera, activated per protocol, recording from his chest, and Webb's personal dash cam, which he had remotely activated from his phone the moment the agents approached. 3 perspectives, 3 irrefutable records. Every word, every gesture, every moment of racial profiling documented in high definition with crystal clear audio. Before we continue, where are you watching from? If this is your first time here, please hit that subscribe button. Stories like these need to be shared, and your support helps us bring more truth to light. Agent Derek Holt had been with Immigration and Customs Enforcement for 9 years, working out of the regional field office with a reputation his supervisors called aggressive but effective. He was known for high arrest numbers, for proactive enforcement, for a willingness to make stops that other agents might hesitate on. His performance reviews praised his initiative and dedication to immigration enforcement. But beneath that reputation lay a troubling pattern that the agency had repeatedly ignored. 7 formal complaints had been filed against Holt over 6 years. Each one alleged racial profiling. Each one described the same pattern. Holt approaching American citizens, demanding proof of citizenship without cause, threatening arrest when they asserted their rights. A Latina schoolteacher detained for 45 minutes at a grocery store parking lot. A Korean-American business owner questioned outside his own restaurant. A black construction worker handcuffed at a job site despite showing a valid driver's license. Every complaint had been reviewed by Internal Affairs. Every complaint had been dismissed as a misunderstanding or unsubstantiated. Holt had learned that as long as he claimed to be acting on tips or suspicious behavior, his department would protect him. He believed his instincts were sharp, that years on the job had given him an eye for who belonged and who didn't. He saw patterns where none existed, threats in ordinary people doing ordinary things. In reality, his instincts were bias, dressed up as experience, prejudice masquerading as professional judgment. The departmental culture enabled him. Supervisors valued arrest statistics over constitutional compliance. Training emphasized enforcement authority while glossing over Fourth Amendment limitations. When complaints came in, the default response was to protect the agent, not investigate the allegation. Holt operated in an environment where demanding papers from anyone who looked foreign was considered good policing, where the Constitution was an obstacle to be navigated rather than a principle to be honored. That Saturday morning, when the anonymous tip came in about a suspicious individual at the Sunoco station on Miller Road, Holt saw another opportunity to do what he did best. He had no idea he was about to encounter someone who understood constitutional law better than he did, and who had the training, the credentials, and the courage to challenge him. Sergeant First Class Marcus Webb had spent his adult life in service to his country. 12 years as a Navy SEAL, one of the most elite fighting forces in the world. 3 combat deployments, 2 to Iraq, 1 to Afghanistan, and others he couldn't discuss. Missions that remained classified, operations that would never appear in any official record. He had earned a Bronze Star for valor during a firefight in Fallujah, where he carried 2 wounded teammates to safety under enemy fire. He had received a Purple Heart after taking shrapnel to his leg during an IED ambush, returning to duty 4 months later against medical advice because his team needed him. Webb had given everything to defend the Constitution of the United States. He had watched friends die for it. He had nearly died for it himself. And when he transitioned out of the military 4 years ago, he continued serving, joining the Metro Police Department, rising quickly to detective, earning commendations for his work in the Violent Crimes Unit. His fellow officers respected him. His supervisors trusted him. He was exactly the kind of man communities needed, protecting them. At 38 years old, Webb had built a life in the suburbs. His wife Sarah worked as an ER nurse at Memorial Hospital, pulling long shifts just like he did. Their 2 children, Marcus Jr., 11, and Destiny, 8, attended the local elementary school. They lived in a 4-bedroom house 7 minutes from the gas station on Miller Road, in the same neighborhood where Webb had grown up, where his parents still lived 3 streets over. That Saturday morning, Webb was exhausted. He had just finished a 12-hour night shift investigating a string of armed robberies. His eyes were heavy, his body ached, and all he wanted was to get home, kiss his kids, and sleep. He pulled into the Sunoco station at 9:43 a.m. to fill up his truck, a routine errand he had done hundreds of times before. He was wearing jeans and a plain gray t-shirt, his police badge and service weapon locked in the glove box per department protocol for off-duty carry. He looked like any other tired man stopping for gas on a Saturday morning. But to Agent Derek Holt watching from across the street, Marcus Webb looked like a target. The Sunoco station on Miller Road sat at the intersection of suburban convenience and constant activity. It was the kind of place where minivan moms filled up between soccer practices, where commuters grabbed coffee, where landscaping crews topped off their trucks before weekend jobs. The station had been robbed twice in the past 3 years, which prompted the owner to install a comprehensive security system that would prove crucial to everything that followed. 8 CCTV cameras covered every angle of the property. 2 monitored the pumps from elevated positions on light poles. 2 more watched the entrance and exit driveways. 3 covered the convenience store interior and exterior from different angles. 1 wide-angle camera mounted on the building's corner captured the entire lot in a single frame. The system recorded in high definition, 24 hours a day, with timestamps accurate to the second. Every pump, every vehicle, every face documented and stored. That Saturday morning dawned bright and clear. By 9:47 a.m., the temperature had already climbed to 72 degrees, the sun casting sharp shadows across the concrete. Perfect visibility. Perfect recording conditions. The kind of light that cameras love, capturing every detail with unforgiving clarity. Webb pulled his black Ford F-150 into the station and stopped at Pump 7, the camera on the eastern light pole tracking his arrival. He stepped out, stretched his tired muscles, and inserted his credit card into the pump. Routine. Ordinary, unremarkable. Across the street, in the parking lot of a closed hardware store, Agent Derek Holt sat in an unmarked ICE vehicle with his partner, Agent Maria Rivera. They had been there for 40 minutes, conducting what Holt called surveillance based on an anonymous tip that had come in that morning. The tip was maddeningly vague, a caller with a block number claiming there was a suspicious Hispanic or black male frequenting the gas station, possibly undocumented, possibly using fake identification. No name. No vehicle description. No specific behavior identified. Just vague accusations that should have been investigated properly before any action was taken. But Holt didn't need specifics. When he saw Webb step out of his truck, a tall, muscular black man in civilian clothes, something in his mind clicked. The assumptions he had cultivated over 9 years told him this was his target. Without verification, without probable cause, without anything resembling constitutional justification, Holt opened his door and headed toward the gas station. His body camera activated automatically as he exited the vehicle, beginning the recording that would ultimately destroy his career. Holt's body camera activated with a soft beep as he stepped out of the unmarked vehicle, the device beginning its automatic recording protocol. The timestamp read 9:47 and 23 seconds a.m. Agent Rivera followed reluctantly, her own camera capturing a slightly different angle as they crossed Miller Road toward the gas station. The morning sun was behind them, their shadows stretching long across the pavement as they approached. Webb stood at Pump 7, his back partially turned, watching the numbers climb on the fuel display. He heard footsteps approaching 2 sets, purposeful and deliberate, and turned to see 2 figures in tactical vests, with ICE badges displayed prominently on their chests. His training kicked in immediately, his posture straightening almost imperceptibly. Years of military and law enforcement experience reading the situation in an instant. Something was wrong. Holt's body camera captured Webb's face as they approached. Calm, composed, alert. The camera also captured Holt's own aggressive posture, his hand resting on his belt, his shoulders squared in a stance meant to intimidate. The CCTV camera on the eastern light pole recorded the same scene from above, 2 federal agents converging on a lone man at a gas pump, the confrontation beginning in crystal clear daylight. "Sir, I need to see your identification and proof of citizenship," Holt announced without preamble, his voice carrying the assumption that compliance was mandatory. No greeting, no explanation, just a demand. Webb's expression remained neutral, but his eyes sharpened. "Good morning, officers," he replied, his voice steady and measured. "Can you tell me the legal basis for that request? What's your probable cause?" The question hung in the air. Holt's body camera recorded his momentary pause, the slight tightening of his jaw. He wasn't accustomed to being questioned. Most people, when confronted by federal agents, simply complied out of fear or confusion. But Webb stood his ground, feet planted shoulder-width apart, hands visible at his sides, the stance of a man who understood confrontation and refused to be intimidated by it. "We've received information about suspicious activity at this location," Holt said, stepping closer. "I need to verify your identity and immigration status. Now." The gas station's wide-angle camera captured the scene in full, the two agents closing in, Webb standing alone by his truck, other customers at nearby pumps beginning to glance over with concern. The confrontation had begun. Webb took a measured breath before responding, his years of training keeping his voice calm despite the anger building in his chest. "Officer, I'm a police detective with Metro PD. I'm off duty. And I'm asking you again, what is your probable cause for demanding my identification?" Holt's body camera captured his dismissive snort. "Anyone can say they're a cop. I need to see documentation, proof of citizenship, now." "I have my police credentials in my vehicle," Webb replied, gesturing toward his truck. "My badge and ID are in the glove box. I'm happy to show you." "I don't want to see police credentials," Holt interrupted, his voice hardening. "I want to see immigration papers, proof you're in this country legally." Webb's jaw tightened, the muscle working beneath his skin, visible on the body camera footage. "I was born in Baltimore, Maryland. I'm a United States citizen. I'm also a Navy SEAL veteran with 12 years of service. I have no obligation to carry immigration papers because I'm American. And under the Fourth Amendment, you cannot detain me or demand identification without reasonable, articulable suspicion of criminal activity. What crime do you suspect me of committing?" Holt leaned in closer, his camera recording his own aggressive posture. "That's what they all say. Everyone's a citizen. Everyone's got an excuse. I've heard it all before." "That's what they all say?" Webb repeated, his voice dropping lower. "Who exactly is they, agent?" The question landed like a punch. Holt's face flushed red, the color change visible on Rivera's camera from the side angle. Behind them, other customers had stopped what they were doing. A woman at Pump 4 held her phone up, recording. A man in a business suit stood frozen by his car door, watching. The gas station's CCTV captured it all, the growing audience, the tension radiating from the confrontation. Rivera shifted uncomfortably, her body camera wavering as she adjusted her weight. "Derek," she said quietly, barely audible on the recording, "maybe we should—" "Stay out of this," Holt snapped without turning around. Inside Webb's truck, his dash cam hummed to life. He had activated it remotely through an app on his phone the moment he saw the agents approaching, a habit developed from years of understanding that documentation was protection. The camera faced forward through the windshield, capturing audio through the partially open window. 3 recording devices now documented every word, every gesture, every moment of escalation. And Agent Derek Holt had no idea. Webb drew on every ounce of his law enforcement training to keep his voice level and controlled. He had de-escalated situations with armed suspects, negotiated with barricaded individuals, talked people down from the edge of violence. He could handle one overzealous ICE agent. "Let me explain something to you, Agent," Webb said, his tone carrying the quiet authority of a man accustomed to command. "Under Terry v. Ohio, you need reasonable, articulable suspicion of criminal activity to detain someone and demand identification. An anonymous tip without specific details doesn't meet that standard. You've given me no reason to believe I'm suspected of any crime. I'm standing at a gas pump, filling my truck, in the neighborhood where I've lived for 6 years. There's nothing suspicious about my presence here." Holt's body camera captured his hands, clenching at his sides. "You're obstructing a federal investigation. That's a crime. Keep talking, and I'll add failure to comply with a lawful order." "Obstruction of what investigation?" Webb asked, his voice rising slightly but remaining controlled. "What specific crime do you suspect me of committing? You keep demanding papers, but you haven't articulated a single fact that would give you legal authority to do so. I'm asking you directly, Agent, what is your reasonable suspicion?" The silence stretched for 4 seconds. The body camera recorded Holt's mouth opening and closing, his mind searching for an answer he didn't have. The CCTV captured his shoulders stiffening, his posture becoming more rigid. Webb's dashcam picked up the ambient sounds of the gas station, a car door closing, the beep of a fuel pump completing, the distant hum of traffic on Miller Road. The gas station's front door swung open with a chime. A middle-aged man in a Sunoco polo shirt stepped out, his name tag reading, Gary Manager. His face showed concern as he took in the scene, two federal agents confronting a customer at the pumps, other customers watching nervously. "Excuse me," Gary called out, walking toward them. "Is everything okay here? Is there a problem?" Holt spun toward him, his camera view swinging wildly. "Sir, step back. This is federal business. Return inside immediately." "This is my station," Gary replied, stopping but not retreating. "That man is a customer. What's going on?" "I said step back," Holt barked. "Interfere with a federal officer and you'll be arrested too." Gary raised his hands and retreated toward the door, but he didn't go inside. He stood watching, his presence another witness to what was unfolding. The overhead CCTV captured his position near the entrance, captured the other customers frozen at their vehicles, captured the phones held up and recording. 3 official recording sources documented every word: Holt's body camera, the gas station's CCTV system, and Webb's dash cam. The truth was being preserved from every angle. Holt had reached his limit. His face flushed crimson, the color vivid on Rivera's camera footage as he reached for the handcuffs on his belt. The metallic jingle as he unclipped them cut through the morning air, captured on all 3 recording devices with perfect clarity. "Turn around," Holt ordered. "Hands behind your back. You're under arrest." Webb didn't move. His voice remained steady, though his eyes had hardened into something cold and focused. "Agent, I'm telling you clearly this is an unlawful arrest. You have no probable cause. You have no reasonable suspicion. You cannot articulate any crime you believe I've committed. If you put those handcuffs on me, you will be violating my 4th Amendment rights, and there will be consequences. Turn around, now!" "You're making a serious mistake," Webb continued, his words measured and deliberate, spoken as much for the recordings as for Holt. "I am Sergeant First Class Marcus Webb, United States Navy SEAL, retired. I am a detective with the Metro Police Department, badge number 4471. I was born in Baltimore, Maryland. I am an American citizen. And you are about to falsely arrest a decorated combat veteran and fellow law enforcement officer because you saw a black man at a gas station and assumed he was illegal." Holt grabbed Webb's arm, spinning him around with more force than necessary. The body camera recorded Webb's controlled movements as he allowed himself to be turned, his hands moving slowly and deliberately behind his back. He did not resist physically. His training told him that resisting federal agents, even during an unlawful arrest, would only escalate the danger. "You're resisting," Holt announced loudly. Loud enough for witnesses to hear. "I am not resisting," Webb replied calmly, his voice clear on all audio feeds. "I am complying with your unlawful orders while verbally asserting my constitutional rights. That is not resistance." The handcuffs clicked around Webb's wrists. Rivera's camera captured her stepping forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "Derek, maybe we should verify his credentials first. He's got details, badge number, military service. We should check before we transport." "We'll verify at the field office," Holt snapped, not bothering to lower his voice. His own camera recorded his dismissal of his partner's concerns. Around them, the gas station had become an audience. A teenager at Pump 2 held his phone horizontally, recording video. The woman at Pump 4 hadn't moved, her phone still raised. An elderly man standing near the air pump shouted, "He said he's a police officer. Did you even check?" Holt ignored them all. He gripped Webb's arm and marched him toward the ICE vehicle parked across the street. The body camera recording the journey past staring customers, past Gary, the manager still standing by the door, past the CCTV cameras that tracked every step. Webb's dash cam captured the moment from behind, recording Holt's back as he led a handcuffed Navy SEAL and police detective to a federal detention vehicle. Webb said nothing more. He had made his statements for the record. Now he let the cameras do their work. The ICE vehicle's interior camera recorded everything that happened during the 12-minute drive to the field office. Webb sat in the back, his hands cuffed behind him, his face turned toward the window, expression unreadable. Holt drove in silence, his jaw tight, but Rivera, sitting in the passenger seat, couldn't shake the doubt gnawing at her. She pulled out her tablet and began typing, running Webb's name through the federal law enforcement database. The search took less than 30 seconds. When the results appeared on her screen, her face went pale. The interior camera captured the color draining from her cheeks, captured her eyes widening, captured her hand moving involuntarily to cover her mouth. "Derek," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Derek, pull over. We're 5 minutes out. Whatever it is can wait." "It can't." Rivera's voice cracked. She turned the tablet toward him, though he couldn't read it while driving. "He's in the system. Active law enforcement officer, Metro PD detective, badge number 4,471, exactly what he said. And Derek." She paused, scrolling down. "He's flagged military, Navy SEAL, 12 years, Bronze Star, Purple Heart, 3 combat deployments." The interior camera recorded Holt's reaction in profile. The initial shake of his head, the denial, then the slow, dawning horror as the reality sank in. His grip on the steering wheel tightened until his knuckles went white. He could have," Holt stammered. "He told you," Rivera said quietly. "He told you exactly who he was. Badge number and everything. You didn't listen." They arrived at the ice field office in silence. Webb was escorted inside, still handcuffed, still calm, his dignity intact despite everything. The booking area had its own camera system, capturing his entrance from multiple angles as Holt led him to the processing desk. Full verification took less than 10 minutes. Metro PD confirmed Webb's employment and active status. The Department of Defense database confirmed his military service, his decorations, his honorable discharge. Every single thing Webb had told them at the gas station was true, documented, irrefutable. Then the phone calls began cascading. Rivera, recognizing the magnitude of the disaster, contacted her supervisor, who contacted the field office director, who made the call no one wanted to make to Metro PD's chief of police. That call triggered another to Navy Special Warfare Command. And somewhere in the city, Webb's wife, Sarah, received a call from her husband's sergeant, informing her that her husband had been arrested by ICE at a gas station 7 minutes from their home. Despite immediate verification of his identity, Marcus Webb remained in custody for 3 hours and 17 minutes. 3 hours of sitting in a holding room, still in handcuffs for the first 40 minutes, while bureaucratic panic rippled through the ICE field office. 3 hours while supervisors huddled in offices, while attorneys were consulted, while people who had nothing to do with his arrest tried to figure out how to contain the damage. The facility's cameras recorded it all. Webb sitting alone in an interview room, his posture straight, his face composed. Officers passing by the window, glancing in with expressions ranging from curiosity to concern to outright fear. Holt pacing in a hallway, running his hands through his hair, his body language screaming desperation. Holt's attempt to write his arrest report was captured on the booking area cameras. He sat at a desk, typing and deleting, trying to construct a narrative that justified his actions. Suspicious behavior, failed to comply with lawful orders, evasive responses, each phrase a lie, each sentence contradicted by his own body camera footage. The booking officer, a veteran named Sergeant Williams with 22 years on the job, read the draft report with unconcealed skepticism. "Suspicious behavior?" he asked, his voice flat. The man was pumping gas. What was suspicious about it? Holt had no answer. At 1:15 p.m., Webb was brought to a formal interview room to give his statement. The facility's recording equipment captured every word as he recited, with precise detail, exactly what had occurred. His voice was calm, almost clinical, the voice of a man who had given countless reports and witness statements throughout his career. "I was detained without probable cause," he stated, looking directly at the camera. Agent Holt demanded proof of citizenship without articulating any reasonable suspicion of criminal activity. "When I identified myself as a law enforcement officer and cited my Fourth Amendment rights, he arrested me anyway. I did not resist. I complied with all physical commands while verbally asserting my rights. This was an unlawful arrest based on racial profiling, and I intend to pursue every legal remedy available to me. At 1:47 p.m., Metro PD Chief Ronald Patterson arrived personally at the ICE field office. The exterior cameras captured his unmarked vehicle pulling into the lot at high speed. The interior cameras captured him striding through the entrance, his face a mask of controlled fury, flanked by 2 deputy chiefs. He didn't ask for permission. He didn't wait for escorts. He walked directly to where his detective was being held. 15 minutes later, Webb walked out of the facility, Chief Patterson at his side. The cameras captured Holt watching from a window as they left. And in the field office director's office, Holt's supervisor had already begun reviewing the body camera footage frame by frame, word by word, watching his agent's career disintegrate in high definition. Sarah Webb had been in the middle of her shift at Memorial Hospital when she received the call. By the time her husband walked through their front door that evening, still wearing the same gray t-shirt, his wrists bearing faint red marks from the handcuffs, she had already begun assembling their response. Before nursing, Sarah had completed 2 years of law school, and she understood exactly what had happened to her husband. She also understood what needed to happen next. Within 48 hours, Sarah had contacted the Constitutional Defense Coalition, a nonprofit organization specializing in civil rights litigation. Attorney Denise Crawford, a Harvard Law graduate with 15 years of experience fighting Fourth Amendment violations, reviewed the preliminary details and took the case immediately. "This is exactly why I do this work," Crawford told the Webbs during their first meeting. A decorated veteran, a police officer, targeted because of the color of his skin. We're going to hold them accountable. The evidence assembly began with Freedom of Information requests filed simultaneously with ICE, the Department of Homeland Security, and local law enforcement agencies. Crawford's team demanded all body camera footage, all internal communications, all records related to Agent Derek Holt's employment history. Gary Morrison, the gas station owner, provided his complete CCTV footage without hesitation. "What they did to that man was wrong," he told Crawford's investigator. "I watched the whole thing. He didn't do anything except stand there and pump gas." The footage comprised 8 camera angles covering 47 minutes, from Webb's arrival to the moment Holt's vehicle disappeared down Miller Road, every second preserved in high definition. Holt's body camera footage arrived 3 weeks later, obtained through the FOIA process after initial resistance from ICE legal counsel. The recording was devastating. 23 minutes of uninterrupted video showing Holt's approach, his immediate demand for papers, his dismissal of Webb's credentials, his aggressive posture throughout. The audio captured every word: Webb's calm assertions of his rights, Holt's escalating hostility, Rivera's ignored warnings. Webb's personal dash cam provided the third perspective. Activated remotely the moment he spotted the agents approaching, it captured crystal clear audio through his truck's open window. The footage showed what the body camera couldn't: Holt's approach from a distance, his targeting of Webb among all the customers at the station, the moment he decided that this black man, among all others present, was suspicious. When Crawford synchronized all 3 sources, the complete picture emerged with undeniable clarity: no suspicious behavior whatsoever, immediate racial targeting, credentials offered and ignored, constitutional rights asserted and dismissed, an unlawful arrest executed despite every warning. Discovery revealed the final piece: 7 prior complaints against Holt, each alleging racial profiling, each dismissed without meaningful investigation. A pattern of discrimination stretching back 6 years, enabled by an agency that valued enforcement statistics over constitutional compliance. The evidence wasn't just damning, it was comprehensive, irrefutable, and captured from every possible angle. The complaint was filed in the United States District Court 4 months after Webb's arrest. Marcus Webb v. United States Department of Homeland Security, Derek Holt, and Maria Rivera. 47 pages detailing constitutional violations that struck at the heart of what it meant to be an American citizen. The charges were extensive: violation of Fourth Amendment rights against unreasonable search and seizure, false arrest without probable cause, racial profiling in violation of the Equal Protection Clause, unlawful detention, intentional infliction of emotional distress, deprivation of rights under color of law pursuant to 42 U.S. C. Section 1983. Each count supported by 3 synchronized video recordings and Holt's own documented history of complaints. The government's response was predictable. Within 60 days, their attorneys reached out with a settlement offer. $100,000, no admission of wrongdoing, sealed records. Crawford called Webb with the offer. His response was immediate. No. They came back with $300,000, then $750,000. Each time, Webb refused. "This isn't about money," he told Crawford during a strategy session, Sarah sitting beside him, her hand on his arm. "I served 12 years protecting this country. I spent 3 tours watching friends die for the Constitution. And then I come home, and a federal agent treats me like a criminal because I'm black. If I take their money and let them bury this, nothing changes. The next Derek Holt keeps doing what he's doing. The next veteran gets harassed at a gas station. No, we go to trial." The government's attorneys filed motion after motion, attempting to suppress the evidence. They argued the dashcam footage was obtained without consent. They claimed the CCTV footage was improperly authenticated. They sought to exclude Holt's prior complaints as prejudicial. Judge Patricia Womack denied every motion, ruling that the footage was central to establishing the facts of the case and that Holt's pattern of behavior was directly relevant to the claims of systematic discrimination. Media attention exploded as trial approached. The story had everything: a Navy SEAL with a Bronze Star and Purple Heart, a police detective with a spotless record, targeted by immigration enforcement in his own neighborhood. Cable news ran segments. National newspapers published features. Veterans organizations issued statements of support. Law enforcement unions found themselves in the awkward position of defending one of their own against another branch of government authority. By the time jury selection began, the case had become a referendum on something larger than one man's arrest. It was about whether the Constitution protected all Americans equally, or whether looking a certain way was enough to forfeit your rights. The whole country was watching. 18 months after Marcus Webb was handcuffed at a suburban gas station, the case went to trial in the United States District Court. The courtroom was packed every single day: civil rights advocates, veterans groups, law enforcement representatives, and national media filling every available seat. Lines formed hours before the doors opened, people desperate to witness what had become one of the most closely watched civil rights cases in years. Jury selection took 3 days. 12 citizens from diverse backgrounds were ultimately chosen: a retired teacher, a small business owner, a nurse, an electrician, 2 military veterans, and 6 others who would decide whether the Constitution's protections applied equally to all Americans regardless of skin color. They sat in the jury box with solemn expressions, understanding the weight of what they were about to witness. Denise Crawford's opening statement set the tone for everything that followed. She stood before the jury, her voice carrying clearly through the silent courtroom. This case is about one man's experience, but it's about something much larger. It's about whether federal agents can demand papers from American citizens based on nothing more than the color of their skin. Marcus Webb served 3 combat tours defending the Constitution of the United States. He earned a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart. He transitioned to law enforcement and continued serving his community as a police detective. And on a Saturday morning, while pumping gas in his own neighborhood, his own government treated him like a criminal, not because of anything he did, because of how he looked. Then the footage played. 3 screens positioned around the courtroom displayed the synchronized recordings: Holt's body camera on the left, the gas station CCTV in the center, Webb's dash cam on the right. The jury watched in absolute silence as Holt exited his vehicle, crossed the street, and approached Webb within seconds of seeing him. They watched him bypass every other customer at the station: the white businessman at pump 3, the elderly white couple at pump 5, and walked directly to the black man at pump 7. The timestamps matched perfectly. The audio overlapped from 3 sources. There was no ambiguity, no room for alternative interpretation. The jury saw exactly what happened from every angle, with crystal clarity. Expert witnesses testified over the following days. Dr. Patricia Morrison, a psychologist specializing in implicit bias, explained how unconscious prejudice affects law enforcement decision-making. Professor William Hayes from Georgetown Law detailed Fourth Amendment jurisprudence, explaining in clear terms why Holt's demand for papers violated constitutional protections. A former ICE supervisor testified about enforcement patterns and the agency's failure to address documented complaints of racial profiling. Holt's testimony was catastrophic. Under direct examination by government attorneys, he attempted to justify his actions, claiming Webb had exhibited suspicious behavior and evasive body language. But under Crawford's cross-examination, his defense crumbled word by word. "Agent Holt, can you describe the suspicious behavior you observed?" He seemed alert, watching us. He was watching two federal agents approach him at a gas pump. "Is that suspicious?" Silence. "Agent Holt, the footage shows my client calmly pumping gas. He wasn't pacing. He wasn't looking around nervously. He wasn't doing anything except filling his truck. What specifically was suspicious?" More silence. "Agent Holt, there were 6 other customers at that gas station. Why didn't you approach any of them?" Holt had no answer. The footage had already provided one. Webb testified for 6 hours over 2 days. He walked the jury through his military service, his transition to law enforcement, his life in the community where he'd grown up. He described the morning of the arrest with precise, controlled detail, the exhaustion after his night shift, the routine stop for gas, the moment he saw the agents approaching and knew, with the instinct of a black man in America, that they were coming for him. His voice broke only once, when describing what he told his children afterward. "My son asked me why the police arrested Daddy. He's 11 years old. I've spent my whole life serving this country, serving my community, and I had to explain to my child that sometimes people will treat you like a criminal just because of how you look. That's not the America I fought for." Crawford's closing argument lasted 47 minutes. She walked the jury through the evidence, the footage, the pattern of complaints, the constitutional violations, and then she delivered the line that would be quoted in newspapers across the country. Marcus Webb served 3 combat tours defending the Constitution. He took shrapnel in his leg, protecting the freedoms we all enjoy. He came home and continued serving as a police officer, protecting his community, and this is how his own government treated him. Handcuffed at a gas station, detained for 3 hours, humiliated in front of witnesses, because Agent Derek Holt saw a black man and assumed he didn't belong. The Constitution doesn't have an asterisk. It doesn't say, "unless you look a certain way." It protects all of us, or it protects none of us. Today, you get to decide which country we live in. The jury deliberated for 2 days, 47 hours of discussion behind closed doors while the nation waited. Webb spent the time at home with his family, trying to maintain normalcy for his children, checking his phone every few minutes for news. Sarah held his hand through the long silences, her faith unshaken. Crawford paced her office, reviewing transcripts, second-guessing nothing but unable to quiet her mind. When the call came that a verdict had been reached, the courtroom filled within an hour. Every seat taken, media cameras positioned outside, the hallway packed with people who couldn't get in, straining to hear through the doors. The jury foreman, a 53-year-old Marine Corps veteran named Robert Chen, stood to deliver the verdict. His hands were steady, his voice clear. On the count of Fourth Amendment violation, we find the defendant liable. On the count of false arrest, we find the defendant liable. On the count of racial profiling, we find the defendant liable. On the count of unlawful detention, we find the defendant liable. On the count of intentional infliction of emotional distress, we find the defendant liable. On the count of deprivation of rights under color of law, we find the defendant liable. Liable on all counts. Sarah Webb buried her face in her husband's shoulder, sobbing. Crawford closed her eyes, exhaling months of tension. In the gallery, veterans who had served with Webb embraced each other. The courtroom hummed with suppressed emotion, Judge Womack's gavel restoring order. The damages phase lasted another week. The jury heard testimony about Webb's PTSD diagnosis, the nightmares, the hypervigilance, the difficulty trusting anyone in uniform despite being one himself. They heard about the impact on his law enforcement career, the whispered questions from colleagues, the assumption by some that he must have done something to provoke the arrest. They heard from a child psychologist about the trauma experienced by Marcus Jr. and Destiny, who had watched their father's arrest replayed on national news, who had endured questions and taunts from classmates. Webb's voice cracked as he described his daughter asking if the police were going to take Daddy away again. "She's 8 years old," he said, tears streaming down his face. "She's afraid of police now. My daughter is afraid of the very people I've spent my life working alongside. How do I fix that? How do I explain that to her?" The jury deliberated on damages for 6 hours. When they returned, the courtroom fell silent. Compensatory damages, $7.4 million, for emotional distress, for career impact, for the violation of constitutional rights that were supposed to be sacred. Punitive damages, $7.5 million. Calculated specifically to send a message to ICE, to DHS, to every federal agency in the country that racial profiling would not be tolerated, that the Constitution was not optional. Total, $14.9 million. The courtroom erupted, cheers and tears and embraces. Webb sat motionless for a long moment, absorbing the magnitude of what had happened. Then he turned to his wife, pulled her close, and whispered something that the cameras couldn't capture. Sarah nodded, crying, holding him tight. Outside the courthouse, the media frenzy was immediate. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. Crawford delivered a statement on the courthouse steps while the Webb family stood behind her, united, dignified. Today, a jury of 12 Americans sent a message that resonates far beyond this courtroom. The Constitution protects all of us. Badges don't grant immunity from accountability. And when federal agents violate the rights of citizens based on the color of their skin, there will be consequences. Agent Derek Holt was terminated within hours of the verdict. His 9-year career ended not with a pension, but with disgrace, his name forever associated with one of the largest civil rights verdicts against a federal agency. Agent Maria Rivera was suspended pending review. She resigned 3 weeks later, unable to continue in an agency where she had watched injustice occur and failed to stop it. The Department of Homeland Security, facing mounting pressure and the undeniable evidence of the trial, announced sweeping policy reforms, mandatory constitutional law training for all ICE agents, new protocols requiring verification of citizenship claims before any detention, independent oversight of complaints alleging racial profiling, body camera footage review for all encounters resulting in arrests. The reforms came too late for Marcus Webb, but perhaps, because of what he endured, they would come in time for someone else. Marcus Webb could have walked away. After everything he had endured, the humiliation, the trauma, the 18-month legal battle, no one would have blamed him for taking his settlement and disappearing from public life. Instead, he chose to keep serving. 6 months after the verdict, Webb announced the establishment of the Shield and Constitution Foundation, a nonprofit organization providing free legal representation to veterans and first responders who face civil rights violations. The foundation was funded with a significant portion of his settlement, staffed by attorneys who shared his belief that those who serve their country deserve to have their constitutional rights protected. "I had resources," Webb explained at the foundation's launch event, Sarah and their children standing beside him. "I had a wife with legal knowledge. I had connections. I had the ability to fight back. But what about the veteran who doesn't? What about the firefighter or the paramedic who gets profiled and doesn't know their rights? That's who this foundation is for. No one who served this country should ever have to face what I faced alone." The policy changes Webb's case forced into existence rippled through federal law enforcement. DHS implemented mandatory verification protocols requiring agents to confirm citizenship claims before any detention. New training modules emphasized Fourth Amendment limitations, using Webb's case as a cautionary example. Body camera footage review became standard for all encounters, resulting in arrests, with civilian oversight committees empowered to flag potential violations. The synchronized footage from that Saturday morning, Holt's body camera, the gas station's CCTV, Webb's personal dash cam, became required viewing at ICE training facilities and law enforcement academies nationwide. Recruits watched the three angles play simultaneously, watched Holt bypass white customers to target the one black man at the station, watched him ignore credentials and dismiss constitutional objections. Instructors paused the footage at key moments, asking trainees to identify where Holt went wrong, what he should have done differently, how implicit bias had transformed a routine morning into a $14.9 million verdict. Webb returned to duty at Metro PD 3 months after the trial concluded. His colleagues welcomed him back with respect that bordered on reverence, not because of the verdict, but because of how he had conducted himself throughout. He had remained dignified under pressure. He had refused to settle for silence. He had stood for something larger than himself. 2 years later, he was promoted to lieutenant, leading a unit focused on community relations and constitutional policing. The three camera angles had revealed something that words alone could never convey. From Holt's own body camera, the jury saw his immediate targeting, his aggressive posture, his refusal to listen. From the gas station's CCTV, they saw the broader context: Webb's unremarkable arrival, his routine behavior, the other customers Holt ignored. From Webb's dash cam, they heard the audio with crystalline clarity, every word preserved, every constitutional objection documented, bias recorded from every perspective, truth captured from every angle, no room for alternative narratives or competing interpretations. The Fourth Amendment was written to protect all Americans from unreasonable searches and seizures. It doesn't distinguish based on skin color. It doesn't include exceptions for anonymous tips or gut feelings. It stands as a promise that in this country, the government cannot treat citizens as suspects without cause. Marcus Webb's case proved that when that promise is broken, accountability is possible, but only when the truth is preserved. If you believe that the Constitution protects all Americans equally, that veterans deserve better than to be profiled in their own neighborhoods, that accountability matters when power is abused, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Tomorrow we have another story of courage confronting injustice, another reminder that standing up for your rights can change not just your own life but the systems that failed you. Because the truth, when recorded from 3 different angles and proven beyond any doubt, has the power to transform not just individual lives but entire institutions. 3 cameras, 3 perspectives, 1 undeniable reality.